The worst football game of all time, shocking, tragic, dreadful, and unplayable buggy mess were just a few words that how I described the launch of eFootball 2022. Welcome to my review of the build 0.9.1, where I'm purely focusing on the gameplay. I mean, there's not much else since the announcement that eFootball 2022 1.0 has been delayed until spring 2022. So yes, that's March to June before we actually see a Mass League or any version of my club. I could only manage playing 2 hours of the launch game the night before the 0.9.1 update. There was 5 pages of bugs that have been fixed. Check out my stream if you want to see and hear what's been fixed in there. But I expected gameplay changes and we actually got them. Although in typical Konami fashion, we weren't told what they were. We just have to find out ourselves, and that's usually a job I see myself doing and taking on each time there's an update. So the second I kicked off, I noticed the passes were a little more zippy and the players more responsive than before. It felt good to have that control back in my fingertips. I was able to string passes together at ease, and it has a really realistic pace about this game. It's probably un-PES-like, aiming for realism over speedy 1-2s down the middle of the pitch, meaning you have to build the play with a bit more thought, and when you carve out that perfect opportunity, it feels really rewarding. In 7 hours of streaming, I tried my best to break the game. Some bugs still remain, the ball hovering off the ground at corners being one of them, and the ball clipping through players another. However, the ones that brought the most laughter, such as the balloon-like arms and players colliding in the most awkward way possible that literally left me in tears, have been fixed. I tried using the shield and physicality buttons to create an abomination, but it wasn't to be. The physicality button works brilliantly now for getting across in front of an attacker and barging them off the ball. There are lots of buttons now for defending, which can feel a little overwhelming to a new player, but once you get to know the combinations and how and when to use them, defending can feel like a joy. But there is a caveat here that the player selection is way off the mark at the moment in its current build and doesn't help defending at all. You can now match up to intercept passing lanes and jockey against oncoming attackers. You can muscle a striker off the ball using the physicality button, perform slide and standing tackles, and if timed right can help win the ball back and spring your own offensive. But this is where the problems start to begin. The lack of arsenal at your disposal right now is so limited. Without sharp kicks, which apply extra power to all of your types of passes and shots, and the removal of some key features from 2021, such as the scoop through ball, the different variety of crosses with the modifier, the skills feeling a little less responsive than usual, it can be a struggle to create chances. However, there is one real joy in this game, and it's the dribbling. If you have a player in the likes of Amad Diallo, Jadon Sancho, Chiesa et al., then you can cause havoc on your opponent's defences, leaving them absolutely bamboozled as you slalom your way through using finesse dribbling and the haptic feedback on the dash button. The player selection is awful at times, and I've noticed when you set a player to make a run with their arm in the air calling for the ball, there are often times your player will completely ignore the ball even if you get the right way of pass on the return ball to them. This is especially noticeable on level 4 manual passing. The reaction to loose balls is pretty dreadful as well. Too often a ball would bounce or drop to a nearby player only for the game to select a completely wrong player who's much further away from the ball. Player reaction to loose balls and the general player selection have to be a big focus for the Konami dev team, and they have to tighten this right up if they want the game to be successful. Player selection with the right analog stick isn't all that great either and seems to be a little bit hit and miss. This was actually brilliant in the Windsor build, so I'm really not sure what's happened since then. There are also times when a player intercepts the ball, especially when he lunges and sticks a leg out or tackles a player, and then you'll find both sets of players freeze for a split second. It's like they need to work out where the ball actually is. It's so jarring and really breaks the immersion. Sometimes this results in also the cursor changing to a faraway player, and I've got a few examples here which I'll put on screen for you. Referees and fouls have been a big issue for all football games, and it's pretty woeful here too. I seldom get free kicks or penalties, even though I dribble a fair amount with certain skillful players. Although I did get one penalty in the 7 hours I streamed, it just would be nice if the AI was a little bit more aggressive and actually performed a slide tackle or two during a game. Sadly, there's no improvements to the dual cam, although the game feels more responsive in the dual cam in comparison to the stadium cam that I usually use. but I simply can't get used to it as the camera zooms in on my defender as a nearby striker approaches, making it feel very claustrophobic when you're in defence, as I lose sight of my players nearby to pass to unless I use the radar. The seamless play seems to have worsened a bit. I notice there's often a black screen just before corners are taken, even if you see a ball boy throw the ball back into play or the player goes to retrieve the loose ball. I cannot stress just how good the finesse dribbling feels, along with the haptic feedback of the dash in combination with the player weight and momentum. It really improves the overall dribbling in this game. I would go as far to say that in its current build of 0.9.1, this is the best game for dribbling, period. This is the best it's ever been in any football game. It just feels perfect, and it's a total game of cat and mouse between the defender and the attacker, and you can definitely tell this was their focus for this game from the previous press releases. Konami need to avoid touching this area of the game as it feels absolutely perfect in its current state. They need to revert the fake shot button back to the pass button instead of the R1 or right bumper. The reason being, you'll often be through on goal and want to perform a finesse shot, but by pressing the R1 or right bumper after pressing shoot will now prevent you from shooting, as your player will perform the fake shot if you mess up the timing. It's not a massive issue, but even myself, I've done it a handful of times. I could criticise the clipping of the ball through players and various other issues that are still outstanding. However, they did make us aware in the patch notes, such as clipping still being an issue which is being investigated and worked on. So I'm not going to be too harsh on Konami here, because at least they're making us aware of these known issues and that they know about them and that they're being worked on. I've already found one exploit though against Superstar AI for the throw-ins. If you use the right analog stick to select a player and run him in beyond the defence to the goal line, the defender will refuse to mark him, and because you can't be offside from a throw, this often results in a great opportunity for you to score. Goalkeepers could still do with some improvement and a little bit of work, because they often defy gravity as they hang in the air for high shots, and maybe they could actually decide to save the odd shot or two. But at the same time, I don't want them to be superhuman like they were in PES 2021. As I mentioned previously, I think there should be two different difficulties, one for the goalkeepers and one for the general AI. Sadly, the replays are still sitting at around 15 to 20 frames per second, so if you do score a wonder goal, you won't want to watch it back. As for the graphics, it's much the same and clearly not good enough for next-gen standards. I personally never expected this game to look next-gen once I found that the Unreal 5 engine was going to be missing, but I didn't expect the crowd to look like a PS3 game either. The crowd has been improved, but only slightly. There's no mole faces, but there's enough duplicated faces to be glaringly obvious. The pitch looks like it has been improved, but not enough by my standards. They have improved and increased the shooting power from distance, which is great until sharp kicks are available, because before striking the ball from range on the launch title, it felt like my player had kicked a beach ball as it slowly and softly floated towards the goalkeeper. Now scoring long shots are actually possible with the right player with a high enough kicking power, but having felt sharp kicks firsthand at Windsor, I cannot wait until they're introduced. I do love the way that AI aren't always able to read what you're going to do like they did in PES 2021, and you can perform some absolutely insane dribbles. People often ask, how does this compare to the Windsor build? It's definitely not as good graphically, but gameplay wise, this is a bit more casual friendly, as defending in the Windsor build was much harder, especially with the haptic feedback on the dash, as this played a really big part and you find your players skidding way past where you wanted them to be. I much prefer the weight, the momentum, the passing, the ball weight for the passes in your shots, and dribbling in the 0.9.1 build. I think these aspects are absolutely perfect in offering us realism. I gave the Windsor build a 7 out of 10, saying it was a great foundation, whilst the launch game I gave a 1 out of 10. I would give this a 6 out of 10 in its current state, but there's still so much work to do. Give us the sharp kicks. Give us back all the controls we had before in PES 2021, the trick trap feints, the improved game plan with more tactics and the ability to actually select a formation. I mean, seriously, you've omitted the ability to select a formation. scoop through balls, and please Konami, make the skills a little bit more responsive and easier to perform, and then add to it. Bring back the advanced controls, such as 3 taps for a low cross, 2 taps for a chest height cross, a single tap for a head height cross, and then a modifier as well for those high looping crosses. And hey, maybe even add a low curl cross and a curled head height cross with the modifiers as well. You know, this is a big step in the right direction with the 0.9.1 build, but there is still so much work to be done. Anyway, thank you for watching this review. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like what you saw, and take care guys, and I'll see you next time. Cheers guys, bye bye.